Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I am Donald Violin, past commander of the Novato VFW Post 7816, and today I will be your master of ceremonies. I welcome you to the 38th Memorial Celebration here at Valley Memorial Park. Earlier today, flags were placed at the grave sites honoring over 700 veterans by the Scouts of Troop 73 and the Cub Scouts of Pac 27. Those on hand today to honor the veterans buried here are the Novato Veterans of Foreign Wars, veterans, the Novato High School Air Force Junior ROTC, Novato Elks Lodge, Novato Police Department, the Novato Fire Department, elected officials and guests. Now I would like to recognize the leaders in our community who are here today. Please stand as your name is called. Should you wish to applaud, please join me after all the names are called. Marin County District Attorney Lori Fagoli. Marin County School Superintendent, oops, she's not here. Novato Mayor Eric Lucan. Novato Council Member and former Mayor Denise Pat Eklund. And Novato Council Member and former Mayor Josh Friday. And Novato Council Member Pam Drew. Novato Police Chief Adam McGill. No. And Novato Fire Chief Bill Tyler.
You didn't say that part.
Thank you all for being with us today. We are holding this ceremony today at the site of the marble benches located behind me, which were donated and dedicated by the Valley Memorial Park in 2015 to honor all branches of the armed services, as well as the merchant marines and prisoner of war and missing in action families. We will now start the proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the colors and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
Forward. March.
Color guard. Halt. Right. Face. Present. Colors.
Two.
Oh, sorry.
Anthony, please now lead it. The national anthem will now be sung by Novato High School Junior ROTC Cadet Anthony Fuchs.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still
Colors. Left, face. Forward, march. Color guard.
Deacon Joe Brumbaugh, please give the benediction.
Left, face. Forward, march. Color guard. Halt. Pause.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we call upon your presence and blessings as we remember our servicemen and women who served, fought, and defended our country. To honor and remember all who served in foreign lands, to provide freedom and peace, comfort family and friends, for all who gave their lives in our defense. May their memories never be forgotten. Amen.
Thank you. You may now be seated. We have two wreaths to be placed today. The first wreath was presented by Terry Brown, which is already there. Exalted ruler of the Novato Elks Lodge, whose group, I might add, was responsible for providing these seats that you have. The next wreath will be placed by Jim Horaeus, commander of the Novato Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 7816.
I'm Jim Horaeus, commander of Post 7816, the only Veterans of Foreign Wars post in Marin County. I welcome you all to join us. Freedom is not free, as often said. With great humility and honor, I present this wreath. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Our first speaker is Novato's Mayor, Eric Lucan, who is a lifelong resident of Novato and a graduate of Novato schools. He started volunteering and giving back to his hometown by working with and mentoring young people. As a youth director, Eric worked with middle school and high school students and was also a volunteer soccer and volleyball coach. After grad school, Eric returned to Novato and served as a volunteer chaplain with the Novato Police Department and was appointed as a Parks and Recreation Commissioner. He was first elected to the City Council in 2011 and served as mayor in 2014 and is again serving as mayor now. Eric and wife Kylie and son Noah are proud to call Novato home. Please welcome Mayor Lucan.
Thank you, Don. It's a real honor to be here as serving as your mayor this year. It's also a real honor to be joined by all of our council members, Mayor Pro Tem Athis, Councilmember Drew, Councilmember Eklund, and Councilmember Friday. First off, I want to just start by thanking all of the men and women who serve this country and remember those who are not here to be with us today. And to Valley Memorial Park, our sincerest of thank yous from the city of Novato and the greater Novato community for not only putting on this one-day gathering every year, but for creating this space for these memorials where the community can come and pay their respect year-round. We really appreciate all of your contributions to our community. As I reflect on Memorial Day, I recognize that there are generational perspectives that are quite different from each other.
I look at my grandfather's generation, a member of the greatest generation. My grandfather was a second-class petty officer in the United States Navy and volunteered for the service where he was stationed on the USS Seebeck, an attack oiler in the Pacific. My father's generation, he was a member of the Boomers, and he watched as many of his friends and his classmates were drafted, some of whom would never make it back. I personally grew up in a very different time. Words cannot describe the gratitude and appreciation I have, that we all have, for those who served and those who made the ultimate sacrifice. I didn't serve in combat. I didn't serve in the military. And while I do have friends who did serve, I watched all of them return home safely. I can never fully comprehend the sacrifices that were made by the generations that went before me. I can never really comprehend what they experienced. But I have other memories that I do have that have given me a deep appreciation. I have memories of safety,
of security, of completeness, of wholeness. Memories that I wouldn't have had if it wasn't for the sacrifices that those before me had paid. The Gospel of John records this: "Greater love hath no man than he laid down his life for his friends." Men and women not only laid down their lives for their friends, they did it for those they had never even met. They did it for those who hadn't even been born. Those who went before experienced loss so that generations to come wouldn't have to. And for that, I am forever indebted. Our community is forever indebted, and our sons and daughters are forever indebted. It is a different time. And that's why it's always important that we look back, that we always remember, that we never forget. I remember back several years ago, it was during the 2012 presidential election, and I was watching the news and all what they were talking about the election, and there was one point that stood out to me. The 2012 election was the first time in the modern era that neither presidential candidate had any military service. Not that it's a requirement for the presidency, but to me that fact stood out to me. And we weren't going to have some of that experience moving forward in our commander-in-chief, and chances are that trend may continue. And that's why it's so important from a national level to a local level, to local gatherings like this today, that we come together, that we remember, that we make sure never to forget. Memorial Day gatherings like this are so important. They're important for our community, for our generations, for our future. That's why it's so great to see the scouts out here early on placing the flags. I'm proud of the increased efforts that we've done here in Novato to honor and to recognize those who have served. It was great going up and down Grant Avenue the other day and seeing all of the faces of Novato veterans on banners lining Grant Avenue. We've also been recognizing veterans at our city council meetings through our Novato Proud campaign. And I really have to commend Councilmember Friday, a Navy veteran himself, for helping to lead some of those efforts. While we can never come close to repaying the service and sacrifices that were made on our behalf, it is encouraging to see local government, the business community, and everyday residents coming together to give honor where honor is due. We can do so much more, and we need to do so much more. As I wrap up my brief comments today, there's one thing I think we can all do regularly to honor the legacy of those before us. I mentioned my grandfather earlier. He passed away several years ago at the age of 95. He marked my life in very profound ways. And he would talk about his time in the Navy and in World War II many, many times. But one thing that was very interesting when he talked about his time, he never talked about his time in the war, or his time in the Navy, or his time in the military, or his time in the armed forces. He always referred to it as his time in the service. That's how he talked about it. When I was in the service, my time in the service, that's how he remembered it. And that's something that he passed on to me. It was all about service. To those who gave years, many who gave their life in the service, I truly believe one of the best ways that we could honor them, one of the best ways that we can always remember, one of the best ways we could never forget is to serve others, to serve our neighbors, to serve our country, to serve our community, putting the needs of others above our own. One of the best ways we can always remember is simply this, to just serve others. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Mayor Lucan. Our next speaker is State Senator Mike McGuire. Senator McGuire was first elected to the Healdsburg School Board when he was 19 years of age. In 2004, he was elected to the Healdsburg City Council, and in 2010 was elected to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors, where he served 4 years. In December of 2014, Mike was sworn into the State Senate, where he represents the 2nd Senate District, which stretches all the way from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border. His district includes Del Norte, Trinity, Humboldt, Lake, Mendocino, Sonoma, and Marin counties. Mike is the chair of the Senate Governance and Finance Committee, sits on the Budget Committee, Transportation and Housing Committee, and on the Energy Committee as well. Please give Senator Mike McGuire a warm Novato welcome.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? I want to take a moment to say thanks everyone profusely. I want to take a moment to say thank you to Don and of course Gloria for all their work, and I think we owe him a debt of gratitude. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you to the VFW and the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, ROTC, and the Elks for your work and your commitment to our veterans. And thank you to our mayor. Wonderful words, sir, and very eloquent. We gather today to be able to honor the fallen. We gather to remember their sacrifice. And we gather this morning on this crisp Memorial Day to say thank you. To say thank you to the 1.6 million veterans who call California home. Just over 11,000 brave veterans proudly live in Marin County. And Governor Gavin Newsom and the California legislature
pass an order recognizing this day as a day for remembrance, reflection, and a day to celebrate all veterans in every corner of the Golden State. And this state, we have to advance more than just warm words to show our respect for the veterans of the Golden State. Veterans represent 25% of California's chronic homeless population. This is a scourge in our society that we simply can't let stand. And here in Marin, through an innovative partnership with the city of Novato, and I want to take a moment to recognize the 5 council members, we'll be building 25 new apartments for homeless veterans that will put us well on our way to end veterans' homelessness here in Marin County. And I think we need to take a moment to say thank you to our city council in this innovative partnership with the state. We're also going to be investing over $1 billion for veterans housing in California over the next 5 years.
And finally, we have fully funded Veteran Services offices in every county
here in the state of California. Yes. Since the days following the Civil War, Americans have come together on this day to remember the sacrifice of our veterans. And today we follow through with this time-honored tradition with 2 words that we want to say to all of you right now. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. And thank you for keeping our country safe. I'm grateful to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator McGuire. Our keynote speaker today is Coast Guard Captain Howard Wright. As Deputy Commander in Coast Guard Sector San Francisco, Captain Wright leads over 850 active and reserve Coast Guard service members operating 4 cutters, 7 search and rescue stations, an aids to navigation team, a vessel traffic service, and a marine safety detachment.
His area of responsibility spans from the Oregon border to the San Luis Obispo County line,
as well as much of Nevada, Utah, and parts of Wyoming, and includes over 2,500 miles of shoreline within the San Francisco Bay and its tributaries. Duties and responsibilities of Sector San Francisco include Captain of the Port, Federal On-Scene Coordinator, Officer in charge of Marine Inspection, Federal Maritime Security Coordinator, and Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator. His reports to Sector San Francisco following his most recent tour as Chief of Coast Guard Public Affairs. In this role, he oversaw the Coast Guard's national media operations, social media program, communications planning, and public affairs workforce management. Prior to that, he served as Deputy Coast Guard Financial Systems Business Requirements, in which he oversaw all aspects of the Coast Guard transition to a financial management, procurement, and accounting shared service provider, including requirements definition, business process re-engineering, and data cleanup, conversion, and migration. Captain Wright is a 1994 graduate of the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. He holds a master's degree in national security and strategic studies from the Naval War College and has an MBA from Georgetown University. Captain Wright lives in the Bay Area with his wife, Stephanie. Let's also give Coast Guard Captain Wright a warm Novato welcome.
Morning. Thank you, Don, for that kind introduction. I'm honored to be here this morning. I'm honored to share the podium this morning with Senator McGuire, Mayor Lucan. I'd like to thank you both for your many years of public service. I also want to thank the Scouts of Troop 73 and the Cub Scouts of Pac 27 for their efforts this morning to honor the memory and service of the veterans here in Valley Memorial Park. I want to give a warm welcome to the council members, police and fire chief, other honored guests. I want to give a warm welcome to the Novato VFW post of 7816 and the members of other veterans group here today. Thank you for your efforts to ensure our veterans receive the care, support, and recognition they deserve. Veterans, service members, guests, as Don already, he stole a lot of my speech with the introduction there. But as I said, I'm Captain Howard Wright. I'm privileged to honor the sacrifice and men and women of our armed forces today. I'm the Deputy Sector Commander of U.S. Sector San Francisco, and I won't repeat the kind introduction that Don gave me this morning. So I'll go right into the heart of my speech. Don't be worried here. I have a lot of paper, but they're in big type, big font so I can read them easily. The service members we honor today represent all those who have fought and died for their country. They represent soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, Coast Guardsmen of all races, nationalities, religions, and walks of life. They represent those who served in spite of the weight of injustice, fighting for freedoms and rights they did not themselves enjoy. Despite their differences, they shared a common core belief in the ideals in which this country was founded and to which we continue to aspire, that led them to answer their nation's call. They served a cause greater than themselves. They served with a devotion to their country, their communities, their families, and in foxholes, submarines, jungles, deserts, prison camps, they served with devotion to each other. Many of them did not ask to leave home. They did not always volunteer, but they did rise to the occasion as ordinary people carrying out extraordinary acts of service at home and abroad in the name of freedom and democracy. This Memorial Day comes just 10 days before the 75th anniversary of D-Day. On June 6, 1944, 75 years ago next Thursday, 156,000 Allied troops landed on the beaches of northern France to begin the liberation campaign of Western Europe from Nazi Germany's control. On that day, over 2,000 young American men gave what Abraham Lincoln called the last full measure of devotion on Omaha Beach, where they lay at rest today. It is unimaginable the thoughts, the emotions, the anticipation, the horrors that those men experienced that day. Without those men and without those measures of devotion, we can only imagine what the world would be like today and how different our lives would be. Behind each of those service members are families, communities, and a country that feels the weight of that devotion and that sacrifice. Army Colonel Steve Sigfrid said, "Armies do not fight wars, countries do." The unrelenting and widespread impact of our nation's conflicts, past, present, and future, are undeniably intertwined with each generation of Americans. We call this our shared sacrifice because we know it is not only the service members who are devoted to their duties. This shared sacrifice unites us as a people because we know that the work our country and our service members are doing is for the greater good of the world and for the betterment of all people. The stories of the men in this cemetery are unknowable to us. I tried to do a little research to find a story of a member buried here, but I was unable. So the danger of inviting a Coast Guardsman to speak is that you get a Coast Guard story. And I want to share a story of one of our Coast Guard members that hits a little closer to home for me and for California. A modern day example of a service member, a hero that gave the last full measure of devotion in support of the betterment of all people and the protection of our nation and way of life. His name was Senior Chief Petty Officer Terrell E. Horn III. He was born in Mountain View, California. He was a bosun's mate in the Coast Guard serving on an 87-foot patrol boat in San Diego. He posthumously received the Coast Guard's highest honor, the Coast Guard Medal, in recognition of his extraordinary acts of bravery and sacrifice. If you'll bear with me, I'll read the award citation because I think it tells this story better than I could. Senior Chief Petty Officer Terrell E. Horn is cited for heroism on 2 December 2012 while leading a boarding team from Coast Guard cutter Halibut in a counter-smuggling operations near Santa Cruz Island, California. Shortly after midnight, Senior Chief Petty Officer Horn deployed the Halibut's cutter boat with 3 other crew members to investigate a vessel loitering in the area without navigation lights. Upon approaching the unlit vessel and identifying themselves as law enforcement officers, the vessel ignored commands to stop and instead rapidly accelerated towards them. The boarding team immediately maneuvered to avoid the oncoming vessel and fired sidearms in self-defense. When the oncoming vessel became unavoidable, Senior Chief Petty Officer Horn, disregarding his own safety in order to protect a fellow crew member, forcibly pushed the coxswain from the helm, directly exposing himself to the oncoming vessel. The violence of the subsequent collision forcibly ejected him from the boat, and despite immediate recovery from the water and application of first aid by his shipmates, he succumbed to the severe injuries received during the incident. Senior Chief Petty Officer Horn demonstrated remarkable initiative, exceptional fortitude, and daring in spite of imminent personal danger. His courage and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Coast Guard. While it is not a traditional or particularly well-known conflict, the counter-drug war is highly prevalent in today's Coast Guard and in today's society. Coast Guard cutters and personnel confront drug cartels and smugglers on the open ocean on an almost daily basis, knowingly and willingly put themselves in harm's way. They do this to counter the destabilizing forces of the drug organizations that breed crime in our communities and undermine civil societies in Mexico and Central and South America, which sends thousands fleeing north in search of safety. The drug war is emblematic of the conflicts in which the members of our armed forces serve today. These conflicts are complex, politically controversial, messy, frustrating. They are without clear ending. No surrender ceremonies on the deck of the USS Missouri, They drag on indefinitely, interminably. And yet, within these conflicts serve men and women called by the same beliefs as those resting under the waving flags in this memorial park. They are called to serve something greater than themselves. They are called by devotion to their country, their communities, their families. They are called by devotion to each other. So I'd like to ask the service members and veterans who are here today to stand. Thank you for your call to duty. Now I'd like to ask the family members of our service members or veterans to stand. We know you have lived through difficult times and often bore a heavy load. Thank you for your service to the country and to your family in this country. Family members, please stand. In closing, I ask that you leave here and go about your day to keep your fallen service members in your minds and their family and friends in your hearts. For it is their immense collective sacrifices that have kept our country safe and free. As long as we continue to honor them with our actions and remember their sacrifices, they will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Wright. I neglected to mention a couple of people that are here, and just for the record, I'd like to say that former Mayor and Councilwoman Denise Assis is here, and former Mayor and Councilwoman Jean McLeamy is here as well. Thank you both. We will now commence with the service closure. Please stand and remain standing until the end of the service. Junior ROTC Cadet Anthony Fuchs will now sing America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful, oh, spacious skies, from amber waves of grain, from purple mountain majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriot dreams, and see beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God mend thine every flaw. Confirm thy soul with self-control, thy liberty in law. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Deacon Joe Brumbaugh, please give the benediction. I hope it's the right one.
Father, we thank you for this day of remembrance for all our servicemen and women whose dedication and service maintained our freedom and protection. May our love and memories for them always stay embedded in our hearts. When day is done and gone the sun, we embrace the assurance of a peaceful night and at the dawn of a new day. May each generation remember those who served. Let us always be able to pray, God bless America. Amen.
Thank you. James Turner, who is a junior at San Marin High School and performs with their jazz ensemble and plays in their musical pit orchestra, will now play taps. Thank you. We will now retire the colors. When appropriate, you may place your hand over your heart or salute the flag.
Color guard. Halt. Right. Base. Left. Base. Forward. March. Color guard. Halt. All out.
Thank you very much for joining us. Those of you that wish to subsequently, I'm sorry, you may be seated. Those of you that wish to subsequently attend the Memorial Day service at the Civic Center that starts at 10 a.m. should have ample time to get there. Those of you that do not have to rush out are invited by the Novato Elks Lodge and the Valley Memorial Park for coffee or juice and donuts in the main building to your left. This concludes our service for the day. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there's. See you soon. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. You come to get them? Yeah. Absolutely.